Well, welcome everyone. I'm Wayne Fagan, Chair of D. Howard International Education Foundation. This is another one in our series of guest presenters to schools throughout the U.S. And giving the students at the schools an opportunity to ask questions ahead of time, as some have done with our presenter today, and to also ask live questions and have a dialogue with the presenter, as we will in a few moments. And we want to welcome our host school today is Frankfurt Elementary. Welcome back, Frankfurt Elementary, and whose principal is Mrs. Bird, Terry Bird. And Frankfurt Elementary is in Frankfurt, Missouri, and we're just delighted to have everyone with us. So hello, Mrs. Bird and other faculty members, and hello to all the students at Frankfurt Elementary. Great. And so our partner in these presentations each time is the University of Texas in San Antonio, Cleese College of Engineering and Integrated Design. And Carlos Velez from Cleese College will be our moderator, the guy that looks like a DJ over there in the upper left. And then Miss Jill Ford, I think, will make some opening remarks. And then after that, we'll turn it over to Carlos. And we're very delighted to have back with us again Mr. Ron Rossano, who is an astronaut from the Galactic 4 mission, and he'll explain all that to you. So, Ron, thank you so much for being with us again, and we'll turn the floor over to you in a moment. So, Jill, if you'd like to say a few words.
Thanks so much, Wayne. Yes, hello, everyone there at Frankfurt Elementary. My name is Jill Ford, and I'm the Assistant Dean for Student Success at the University of Texas at San Antonio. And I have to tell you that it's my favorite time when we are with Frankfurt Elementary, because you might not know this, but I grew up in Bowling Green, just a few miles down the road from you, and lived there for quite some time. And so of course, now I'm down in Texas, but I'm so happy that Frankfurt is part of the D. Howard International Education Foundation Rural STEM Initiative. And UTSA is so happy to be a partner and to be able to take part in this initiative and in these videos and presentations. So yes, so excited to be here today. And thank you. I will also say thank you to Mrs. Bird for helping to make sure that this happened, and looking forward to hearing Ron again and to having Virgin Galactic back with us. So thank you.
Thank you. Carlos, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah. And so just to kind of set the table for today, as we talked about a little bit, we'll have Ron start out, talk about, give you a little background on himself and his experiences. He will also be shouting out some questions that you all had submitted over to us as well. But I want you all to make sure to think of additional questions, right? As he's talking about his experience, if there's any new questions that come to your mind, keep them in there so that way later on we can get to some even more questions and you can talk with them directly today. So we'll always love questions, always like to keep our minds active. And so throughout this presentation to keep thinking of more, because we'll try to get you to talk directly later. So with that, we'll pass it over to Ron if you'd like to go ahead and get us started. I'm going to turn off my camera as well, just so we can see all of y'all nice and bigger than my face. All right, great. Ron, take it away.
Thanks, Carlos. And hey, everyone, are you hearing me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Super. So hi, my name is Ron Rossano. I'm at my home near San Francisco, California, and I've been talking to students about space for about 30 years in a bunch of different roles. And I was lucky enough to get a ticket to fly into space with Virgin Galactic. And I flew into space with them almost exactly a year ago. I just celebrated the 1-year anniversary. Our crew just celebrated the 1-year anniversary of our flight on October 6th. So great to have your questions. Great to see you. Thank you for having me. This is a really, really exciting time for space travel and for you students. I think that's and I'm really excited to share this with you. This idea of people traveling to spaces uh, and paying their way, buying tickets to go to space like you do on an like you buy a ticket to go on an airplane is new, and a lot of people don't know about it, but it's happening now, and it's been happening the last few years with two companies, really, with Blue Origin and with Virgin Galactic. And those two companies have flown 80 different people to space so far in the last 5 years, 6 years. So this is a really exciting time. There was no way really to get to space like this before. You had to be an astronaut for your career, for your job, in order to go to space. But now it's a new era, and people from all over the world are buying tickets and flying to space. And I'm happy to and excited to share, what that was like with all of you. I won't talk for too long because I like to, hear your questions, and I'll start with answers for the questions that you sent. Thanks for sending those ahead of time. I'll just share, just a couple pictures that maybe you haven't seen before. This is me with the spaceship, the Virgin Galactic spaceship. That's at the spaceport in New Mexico. It's called Spaceport America. And the ship there behind me, it looks like there's four tails there, and it's a very different looking spaceship. It's a spaceship in the middle and a carrier plane that's custom built to carry the spaceship up high into the sky. And I think maybe you saw in the video where the carrier plane flies up and it carries the spaceship underneath it, and then releases the spaceship, and the spaceship fires a rocket to go to space. It's a little different way from what you see in normal rockets. Let's just take off from the ground and go up, like this Falcon rocket I have behind me over there. But the reason that one of you asked, why do they drop the rocket off? So that was something that was designed. That's a great question, Coy. Coy, are you there? Raise your hand. All right. Great. Thanks. So Coy asked, why do they drop the rocket off? Well, they do that when they designed the system. They felt they could make a smaller size spaceship and not have to carry as big a rocket if they launched it in the air. So if you launch from the ground, when you start from zero, you need a big rocket to lift you off of the ground and get up high in the sky. But if you launch from the air, you're already above most of the thickness of the atmosphere. And because the plane is carrying the spaceship's already traveling about 400 miles an hour. So they could build a much smaller spaceship, smaller rocket. It's a lot easier to build it if you launch the spaceship in the air rather than have it take off from the ground. So let's see. Let me go through some more questions. Sterling, are you there?
Yes.
All right, cool. Hey, Sterling. Thanks for your two questions. One, you asked, how do you breathe? And that's very simple. Is the spaceship that we're in is very much like an airplane. They pressurize the cabin like if you get in an airplane, they put they put pressure on the cabin so that we could just breathe normally. And they do the same thing in the spaceship. We just breathe like we do when we're walking around on the Earth. And you asked us, what do you see on the rocket ship? Well, I'm going to share this picture because this also kind of answers, let's see, another question. Julian, are you there too? Julian asked about what does it feel like in space? So what did I see and what does it feel like is kind of like this. It's hard to describe in words. So what I spent a lot of time looking at was the edge of the planet. And if you look closely, you can see there's a blue line right there. And that is all of our sky. That's all of our atmosphere. And that's the boundary between the ground, the surface of the planet, and the black vacuum of space where there's no air at all. And this blue line, everything that's alive on Earth lives inside that blue line. And that was one thing that I just couldn't really take my eyes away from. it was astonishing to me how thin it is. It was kind of shocking to see this very narrow layer, you know, of atmosphere. You know, you go outside and you look up and you see the sky and it looks like it goes on for a long way. But we were just about 57 miles up. And 57 miles isn't that far. It might be, is it maybe as far as from you guys to St. Louis, maybe something like that? It's not far on the ground, but if you go straight up, that air is not very thick. And you don't have a sense of that when you're standing on the ground. So that was one thing I looked at, and one thing that really stuck out for me in the way I felt is like, wow, this planet that we're on is an amazing existence. It's so unique in this empty vacuum of space and this black vastness. And there's this precious earth keeping everything alive on the surface, out floating around. And we're going about our regular things, going to school, having dinner and things. We don't really think about, gee, we're actually on a spaceship right now. Our Earth is a spaceship floating through space, spinning around, goes around the sun once a year, but we don't really think about it in that way. And I think it's important for you guys. That's one of my, big messages to you is like, yeah, we're on a spaceship together, and we need to kind of have a sense of that and be aware that, these, it is a fragile and a very unique existence. So let me answer Ty's questions. Ty, are you there? All right, Ty, thanks for these two. How long did you take to fly there, and how long were you flying? So the Virgin Galactic spaceship takes off with the carrier plane on the runway, and we're off the ground for about an hour and a quarter all together. And the spaceship, most of that is 40 minutes as the carrier plane flies up to altitude, the release altitude. And then the spaceship flight is about 16 or 17 minutes total. So it's not very long. And they fire the rocket, they release the spaceship, fires a rocket, they turn the spaceship up, and the rocket burns for about a minute. So it's not very long. It's over in a minute. And then the spaceship coasts up to the highest point, the apogee, and then comes back down. And that's when we're in space. And that's really only about 3 minutes. So yes, it's a very short flight, but the magic of seeing the Earth from that and having a sense of our planet in space is really a worthwhile thing. And most everybody that goes up has that kind of change in the way they think and the way they feel. That's often called the overview effect. Is when you see the Earth from space, you kind of change the way you think about things, the way you think about yourself, the way you think about other people. So let's see. Callie asks, Callie, you there? Hey, Callie. Did I eat on the trip? And if so, what did I eat? We did not eat on our trip. Since we're just gone for an hour and a quarter, we didn't carry food, but we did have in a special pocket in our spacesuit, strapped to our leg, a little flask of water. So that if we got thirsty, we could grab some water and have a sip. And there was also water kind of in the side pocket of the spaceship. So we tried to keep, because we're with the rocket fire, we're feeling forces of gravity, and then we're weightless for about 3 minutes and floating. So we were careful with what we ate in the morning, though, that's for sure, because you don't want to have something that's really going to upset your stomach. So we kind of stayed away from spicy things and big meals. We just ate, kind of something that'll calm our stomach, like a muffin or banana, and just kept that. We didn't really want to eat during the flight. Let's see. And then Callie asked, did you stay in the rocket ship the whole time? If not, how did you get in and out? Yes, we stayed inside the whole time. And I'll touch on that question because, let's see, there was a question about who went with us. So let me share this picture of our crew. So this is, let's see. Emma, you asked who else went with us. So here we are. This person in the middle, sitting down right in the middle, that's Kelly Latimer. She's our commander, our spacecraft commander. And she sat in the front seat with the man on the left who's smiling and who took the picture. This is CJ Sturko. He flew 4 NASA missions and he's flown 6 times now with Virgin Galactic. He's flown into space 10 times, which is the most of any human being. So we're really lucky to have him as such an experienced pilot with Kelly in the front of the ship. In the back of the ship, you can see me behind Kelly. And then on the right-hand side is my friend Trevor Beatty. He's from the United Kingdom. He's from England, Manchester. He was sitting in the second row across from me. And in front of me, you can see between Kelly and CJ, this is Namira Salim. She's originally from Pakistan and also lives in Dubai now. She's the first Pakistani person to go to space. And then the woman standing between me and Trevor, that's our astronaut trainer, Beth Moses. She works for Virgin Galactic, and she sat in front of Trevor, and she was along to make sure we, did what we were supposed to do, and to take care of anything, in case something went wrong. She would help us work through that problem. So. In total, there's 6 people in the spaceship, 2 pilots, Kelly and CJ, and 4 people in the back. So thanks for that question. And Ellis asked, how many space flights have I gone on? Ellis, you there? Hey, Ellis. 1. This is my only space flight. I wish I could do more, and I would like to do more. And here's another important message I wanted to share with you guys. I think you all will have the chance to go to space someday. I went when I was 63 years old, and I bought my ticket when I was 50. So I waited about 13 years to go. And I always wanted to go, and I never thought I'd have a chance. And then Virgin Galactic came along, and they had their spaceships. So I said, wow, okay, this could be it for me. But with this era of new spaceships and new space flights, I think you all will have the chance to go to space when you get older, and probably at a lot younger age than I was when I went. So if you're interested in space and if you're curious about space, I would encourage you to think about space travel in that way. And that's something that you might like to do. Another important message I wanted to leave with you is that there are jobs working for space companies in all kinds of areas. Yes, they need pilots like CJ and Kelly, and engineers like Beth, who designed the spaceship. But this Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin too, both have people working for them that are doing all different kinds of things. Some people are into computers and networking, and they're managing all the communications for the space company. Other people are artists and photographers and videographers. There's people that are there on this at the space flight with us, taking pictures. There's people that do the graphics and design logos. Like this is an artist who did, this is our mission patch that I'm wearing. And it's got a lot of elements particular to our flight in it. So that's another opportunity. Maybe you're an artist. Maybe you like working with your hands. You like building things. There's people that are building spaceships out of carbon fiber. And that's an exciting thing too. So I would be open if you're like thinking about it, might like to work for a space company, or might like to design rocket engines or something. There's all kinds of possibilities for that, because now it's not just countries that are doing it like NASA or the US, but there's all kinds of small companies. So let me go through a few more answers from the questions you sent before, and then we'll do some questions in person. How's that? Good? Okay. So Julian asked, where are you, Julian? Hey, right in front. Way to go. How did it make you feel? Wow, I don't think I could put that in words all the way. It's so many things. It made me feel small in a lot of ways, because I look at this giant planet and think of all these people on it that are just busy doing their regular things. And I'm like, wow, I could be doing any different thing, but that planet is still going to be spinning around today, tomorrow, forever. Whether we do things, the things that we want that are so important to us or not, it made me feel big in a way. Like I think humans, like looking at the thinness of the atmosphere, made me think, wow, humans are so small that they can't, it's, the planet's still going to be going around, but the atmosphere is so thin, it's really important for us to take care of it. So that was some interesting things too. Let me go on to, let's see, what are there? Coy asked, Coy, you there? Hey, Coy. What is the spaceship called? What is the plane jet called? The mothership that carries the spaceship is called Eve. It's named after Richard Branson's mother because it's a mothership. So he thought it was appropriate to name it after his mom. And the spaceship, right there, you can see the name on it. It's named VSS Unity because it was named by Stephen Hawking, the physicist, because one of the missions for space travel and for Virgin Galactic is that to remind us that we're on this planet together and we need to have unity about that. And it's really meant to be something that brings people together, this experience, and create unity. Let's see, is that all? So the last of the first group of questions is from Brantley. Where are you, Brantley? Hey, what is space? That's a good one, Brantley. You're doing some deep thinking there. Thank you. And I encourage that. Keep going. What is space? When we think of space, we think of a place where there's no air. Really, is one way to think of it. Is when you leave the Earth, this atmosphere that is held down by gravity is just a narrow layer on top of the surface of the planet. But you get beyond that, you're in emptiness and there's no air and it's a vacuum. It's empty. There's no molecules bouncing around. There's no atoms there. Well, there's some atoms, but not a lot. So, so really when we think of space, we think of, beyond our planet. And it's really kind of emptiness, but it goes on forever as far as we could see. Even with the biggest telescopes, they're looking at planets in our solar system. They're looking at stars inside our Milky Way. They're looking at other galaxies like the Milky Way in the universe. And it's I think of it as kind of incomprehensibly big. It's so big that we can't really comprehend how big it is. Our minds, I don't think, are really built so well to understand it, those kinds of things in that size. So just have last few questions. Quincy, are you there? Hey, Quincy. Have I been to the moon? No, I have not. I would love to go to the moon. 12 people have walked on the moon, as many as, so when you think of how many people walked on the moon, you could look at a dozen eggs. Next time you get a dozen eggs at the grocery store, open the box, there's a dozen eggs, there's 12 eggs in there, and you could say, well, that's exactly how many people walked on the moon. And there were 12 other guys that went to the moon but didn't walk. So there's 24 total have been outside. And the last time that happened was 1972 when I was 12. And I was in probably 6th grade is the last time I went to the moon. So pretty close to your age. I was about your age the last time they went to the moon. But the next trip will be a lot sooner. Aubrey, are you there? Aubrey, thank you for this question. What were you thinking while gone? I'm going to go back to this picture when I was looking. So what was I thinking there? I was trying to not think about anything at all, really. I went up and I wanted to be as open to the experience as possible. We had 3 minutes in space, and that's a really short time. And I thought a lot about how do you make that short amount of time really special. So I wanted to just not really think about anything and be as open as I could to the experience and let the experience bring to me whatever it was going to bring. I didn't want to go up there and toss candy or do somersaults or bounce around the cabin because you could do that on a weightless flight. for practice. But the unique thing is seeing the Earth. So I looked a little bit at the ground. I looked a lot at the blue line and the edge of the planet and the atmosphere, and a little bit into the blackness of space. But we couldn't really see anything except the moon. So we didn't spend too much time looking at the blackness of space. And let's see. I think that's all the questions that you sent before. But I'd love to have more questions from you now. So
Yeah, so now we can kind of open it up to the class. So if there's any easy way that y'all like to do this, if you want to like the teacher would like to have call on students, have a student come up and ask the question directly, or if you'd like to just have the student shout out the questions, whatever works for you all. But we'd love to hear some questions directly from the class.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Your name wasn't real if anybody has another question, something that has not been asked yet. Okay, Jace, why don't you stand up? And just come up a little bit closer here and ask your question, just so they can hear you.
Who was the first person to walk on the moon?
who was the first person to walk on the moon? Great question. A man named Neil Armstrong. I saw him give a talk once, a long time ago. He was an excellent, excellent test pilot. He could fly a plane kind of like we drive a car, but in an expert kind of way. And he was very smart and analytical, and he was really good at not panicking when there was an emergency. He flew once before that on a Gemini flight, and they had a very serious thing happen. And Neil Armstrong, he didn't yell, he didn't scream, he didn't like panic. He just like kept his cool, kind of figured out what was going on, what's going on with how to fix the problem, how do we fix it? Okay, found the fix. And that's one reason why he was such a good person to go first, because he was very capable and could react with a very cool head in a difficult situation. Yeah, I would encourage you, if you want to learn more, if there's a great movie about him, or find a speech that he's given. He's got a lot of brilliant thinking.
So Justin, come on up. So this is Justin. He has a question for you.
Cool. Hey, Justin.
Okay.
What was it like when you went to space?
What was it like when you went to space? Well, it's it's a lot. So where there's a lot of thinking, a lot of nervous. There's some nervous. It's like, wow. There's a lot of, well, I think for me, not so much nervous, but excitement. It's like, wow, this thing I've always wanted to do, it's really happening. And we're going up in the plane, we're about to go, and like, yay, this is like a dream come true. It is a dream come true. And then they release the spaceship and the rocket fires, and we're pushed back in our seat with 3 times the force of gravity. So it's kind of like if you lay down on the ground and have 3 of your friends lay on top of you. That's what it feels like. They're pushing back. And I practiced that in a centrifuge where you could sit and you could feel what those forces of gravity are like. And they're not particularly comfortable, but they're very manageable, and it's not hard. And then the rocket shuts off and it's quiet. And there's no fans blowing. And there's this magical Earth looking down that you're looking down on. So that's kind of a euphoric moment where you're floating. When you're floating weightless, that feels so strange. It feels so different, and it's fabulous. And you wish it would go on for hours, but we hit our top point, and then gravity brings us back down. Very much like the way if you throw a ball in the air, it's going fast when it leaves your hand, and it reaches its highest point where it stops, and then it starts coming down. Spaceship did the exact same thing. So I was really trying to be open and not worried about things, just like taking in this magical thing.
I have Allie here, and she has a question for you.
Who was your favorite person to fly?
Say that again.
Who was your favorite person to fly with?
Who's my favorite person to fly with?
Hmm?
Boy, it's hard to pick a favorite. I think CJ Sturko, the pilot, was pretty special because he is such an experienced pilot. We got to take an acrobatic flight. He took me on an acrobatic flight in a small plane a couple days before we flew to space. So he flew the plane around in ways that I could feel forces of gravity like we feel on the space flight. And he's got a lot of stories. Beth Moses, I've known for a long, long time, and she's a great engineer. She worked for NASA for 20 years, and she is really smart about all things connected to space and all things about how the spaceship works. And then Kelly's a really fabulous commander. I've talked to her a few times after, and she's got a great history of working for the Air Force for many decades. So all the people that work for Galactic were really terrific. So hard to pick a favorite.
Thanks, Alex. And I have Emily with another question.
Okay. Hey, Emily.
If you actually dumped a water bottle in space, would it float?
If you dumped a water ball in space, would it float? Yes. And the water does some crazy things. If you go to YouTube and search for water in space, water floating in space, you'll see some cool things that the astronauts do in the International Space Station. They play with water on the space station, and they play with water in a lot of different ways. If you squirt it like gently out of a bottle and let the water come out, water comes together in a ball, and it just floats like a ball, and it kind of wobbles a little bit like when it comes out. And then the astronauts can like take a straw and go and suck up the water just right out of the air. And they do cool things like, what if you put a little like food coloring in the water? What does you see how it mixes around? What if there's bubbles in the water? And what if there's bubbles in the water that's spinning? So a lot of really cool things. We didn't get to play with water on our spaceship because we're just up there for a few minutes. We didn't want to mess around with that or get things wet or have it go out of control. But yeah, cool things happen with fluids in space. Thanks.
We have Maddie with a question for you.
Great.
Why did you want to go to space?
Why did I want to go to space? That's a great question, Maddie. I think there's something that I has always wanted, that has always made me want to go to space. Even when I was little, when I was like 6 or 7 years old, I was curious about the stars in the sky, and I'd look up at in the night sky on a clear night, and wonder what those stars are and how far away they are and why we're seeing them the way we see them. And I think having the Apollo moon missions happen when I was age 9 to 12 kind of always made me think about what it's like in space. And I could go out then when people were on the moon, I could go out and look at the moon and say, wow, there's 2 guys walking around on the moon right now that I'm looking at. And that was really, I think that really kind of always kept me wondering and curious about space. And I hope, we have some moon landings maybe in the next 5 years, and you'll get to do the same thing. You get to look up at the moon and says, hey, there's a man and a woman walking around on that moon right now. So I'm excited for that moment.
We have Nevaeh with a question for you.
How did you know how to land like after you're done?
How do we know how to land after we're done? So spaceship comes down and lands like a glider. So the pilots practice that in a simulator. Let's see if I can have a picture of the simulator. Oh, I don't have one here. They construct the simulator at Spaceport. Yeah, here it is. And here we go. So this is a simulator. So the pilots land the rocket ship like a glider. After it goes to space, it comes down, and because it has wings and control surfaces, parts of the spaceship that you move to make it fly in different directions, they fly it like a glider, and it comes down. Gravity brings it down, and the pilots are very careful about making sure it lands on the runway. They get one chance. They don't have like engines like you do in a commercial jet. So this is us practicing in the simulator. It's got a full build of the cabin and then a video screen beyond it. And Kelly's there at the controls. You can see her kind of behind me in the back in the middle. And she's flying the plane with like a control yoke. So she, they they fly it, or as it's coming down, they fly it around the spaceport and then guide it to land on the runway. She's really good at it.
Our next student is Pretty with a question for you.
Okay.
The stars look different in space.
Do the stars look different in space? Not so much. We didn't see stars on our space flight when it was during the day, and the brightness from the Earth was so bright that our eyes couldn't see stars. So we didn't see any stars. We saw the moon, and the moon looked very much like it does, like from the ground. We're not that much closer to the moon. We're just a little bit closer. But astronauts on the space station, when they see the stars, when they're on the nighttime side of the Earth, when they look at the stars seem brighter to them, and you could see more stars. And like structure of the Milky Way galaxy, because the Milky Way galaxy has gas and dust in it. And you could see some of that on the ground at night in the clear sky. And you could see that even better from space.
Okay.
Okay. So
We have Blake with a question for you.
Where did you land after you were done in space?
where did we land? We landed at Spaceport in New Mexico on a runway there. So let me see if I have a picture of that somewhere. Yeah, here we go. I'll share this picture. So CJ, to get me used to the space flight, get my body kind of familiar with what the space flight is going to feel like, CJ took me on a plane ride 2 days before, and this is a picture from the plane ride. And he gave me his phone and say, "Hey, I'm gonna fly above the spaceport. I want you to take a picture, take a selfie with my camera." So this is the picture I took, and CJ's in the back, and he's flying the plane, and you can see this brown kind of looking thing over here. That's the spaceport that New Mexico built. It's in the state of New Mexico, and then you can see the ramp and the runway behind CJ's head here. So it's out in the middle. You can see it's kind of out in the middle of the desert. That's important because they want to have it someplace where there's not a lot of airlines going over it, because they don't want to hit a plane on the way up or the way back down. And so high in elevation, it has a lot of clear skies. So yeah, thank you, New Mexico, for building a spaceport.
All right, next we have Conrad with a question.
Conrad,
Did you see the moon?
did we see the moon? Yes, we saw the moon, and they knew we were going to see the moon before we left. So the day before, they're saying, "Well, you guys, the moon's going to be up in your sky when you're flying, and it's going to be on the right-hand side." And so Trevor and Namir and I were like, "We all want to see the moon." So we had to practice how we were going to move in our seats so we could each be at the window and look and see the moon out of our window. So yeah. And Conrad, there's a very famous astronaut named Pete Conrad. If you're interested, you should look him up. He was the third person to walk on the moon. And like Neil Armstrong, a very brilliant pilot.
Thank you, Conrad. Next we have Wade.
Okay, hey Wayne.
Ask your question, Wade.
What is a black hole really?
What is a black hole? So a black hole is an area in space where there's so much gravity that light can't even escape. So you could feel the gravity, Earth's gravity holding you down on the ground right now, right?
Yeah.
So if the Earth were bigger, like if it was twice as big, it would be pulling you down twice as hard. It'd be really hard to walk. If it's smaller, like on the moon, if you're on the moon, you weigh 1/6 of your gravity on Earth, your weight on Earth. It's pretty cool. So if you weigh 60 pounds now, you'd weigh 10 pounds on Earth. You could probably pick up a friend and just like carry him around really easily if you're on the moon. If you get more and more mass together, like from a star, a collapse, when a star collapses, it could collapse into a black hole where there's so much gravity in such a small amount of space that light can't even escape. So it's a very difficult thing to kind of conceive. And one message I want to leave you with, you guys, is like there's gravity everywhere. People think that, oh, astronauts, when they go to the space station, there's no gravity. No, there's gravity everywhere. Gravity's holding the moon in its orbit around the Earth, and gravity's pulling us down like we feel right now. So the astronauts don't really escape gravity. They're just falling through it. So there's gravity everywhere in space. And gravity, when there's so much gravity that light can't escape, you get a black hole. And they come in different sizes, big, small. Very interesting thing.
Bailey with a question.
Are you
Hey, babe.
are you nervous to get stuck in space knowing that it's happened?
Am I nervous to get stuck in space knowing that it's happened? Well, yeah, that's a good question. There's some people that ask me, like, was I scared on the ride? And I thought about it. It's like, no, I didn't want to be scared. I wanted to be open to the experience. I wanted to like see the planet and think about just seeing the planet. I didn't want to go up there and be thinking, God, are the pilots doing the right thing? Like, what's that noise? It's like, I didn't want to be, I wanted my mind just fully focused on seeing the planet. So I wasn't so nervous. I felt like, and I knew we wouldn't get stuck in space because gravity is going to bring us back down one way or the other. But I trusted that Virgin Galactic was going to do the very best to make the spaceship as safe as they possibly can. And so, yes, it's a little risky. We're riding a rocket. There's things that could go wrong. But for me, the reward was very much worth the risk. So there you go.
All right, I have Emma with a question.
So when you were coming back to Earth, like when you broke into the blue part, was there like fire around the station?
Was there fire on the spaceship when we're coming back? No, there wasn't. So that's one of the things about going up into space just a little bit and coming back down, is that we don't come down fast enough to create fire like you see on SpaceX Starship or on a capsule that's coming back from orbit. So we're going slow enough so that we come into the atmosphere in a way that doesn't burn up the spaceship. So when we're not heavy enough to do that. So that's one of the great like balances. Like, well, how big of a rocket can you carry? If you go higher, how hot is it going to be when you come in? Well, we can't have it be too hot, so we can't go that high. There's a lot of trade-offs. So great question. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. Next, I have Ellis with a question.
Okay.
See hurricanes and tornadoes in space?
Can we see hurricanes and tornadoes? Yes, we could if they were nearby. I'll share this view. We could see for about 200 or 300 miles in each direction. So yeah, you could see a lot of, here's a picture, here's a video actually of when they released the spaceship, and you could see the rivers and mountain ranges there. That's the rocket motor firing. There's roads down there. We had a really clear day. There wasn't a lot of clouds right below us. And there's a picture from the tail of the carrier plane. Here's the space where the spaceship was. And then in the back, you can see that orange fire. That's the spaceship flying. That's the rocket motor burning, flying up. So you get a sense of, clouds and mountain ranges and things. Pretty cool. I highly recommend it for when you get older.
All right, next we have Olivia.
Hey, Olivia. Hey.
Did you float?
Did I say it again? Did
you float?
Did you float?
I float? Yes, absolutely. Yes. When the rocket motor cuts off, we're floating around inside the cabin. And I definitely wanted to feel what that was like. Let me find, let's see if I have a video of me at that point. Yeah, let me share this one. So here I am at the seat, and you can see that the space outside the window, the plane is still there, and right about here, they let us go. And the rocket motor burn is like that. And then after the rocket motor finishes, I took my seatbelt off, and I wanted to float for sure. And that's me kind of floating. I actually flipped upside down while I was floating and let go of the spaceship.
Upside down.
So we got to float around for about 3 minutes. It's very fun.
Thanks, Olivia. Next, we have Sterling with another question.
Hey, Sterling.
Did you have to go through some type of training if something went wrong?
Do we have to go through training? Yes. We practice for a few things. There's like a procedure that if something happens to, if the wrong thing happens to the spaceship or like part of it gets stuck, then we would like bail out with parachutes. So we practiced that. Very unlikely, but there was like a small chance of happening. For the most part, it's really safe and there's not a lot of things to worry about. So like if there's something wrong with the spaceship, it just comes down and it glides back down. So we didn't really have to practice for too many things that would go wrong. We practiced getting in and out of our seat and buckling our seat belts. They want to make sure you're in your seat when you come back down. So you don't want to go floating around inside the spaceship and then end up upside down with your feet on the ceiling when it's coming back. So we had to practice, getting back into our spaceship and buckling our seatbelts. So a few things like that. But a lot of my preparation was mental. It's just like thinking about it. It's like, what am I going to do when I'm there? What am I going to be looking at? And, I thought at first, I just want to like look at oceans and mountains. And then it's like, no. I just want to be open and just let the experience kind of come to me. So, thanks.
I with a question for you.
What happens to the back of the rocket when we launch off of it?
What happens to the back of it? Yeah. So after the rocket motor fires, there's a cartridge in the back of the motor, in the back of the rocket, that has like a solid rubber fuel, and that sits in the back of the spaceship, and that just turns off. And at the end of the flight, after we land, they take that cartridge out and they put a new one in for the next flight. So yeah, the rocket they change that out for every flight. So help keep it a simple system.
Quincy has a question for you.
Hey,
What
Quincy.
was your favorite thing in space?
What was my favorite thing in space? I think just seeing the Earth and having the sense of, where we are as a planet. It's almost like I guess I maybe have kind of an explorer person or explorer gene in me. It's like, the person that goes around the other side of the mountain to see what's there, crosses the ocean to see what's on the other side. I always like to find out new things. But yeah, to have a sense of the planet like that, we just can't get that from being on the ground. And really just seeing the planet and being able to float weightless while you're doing it is a favorite thing. And I think about it every day. And I can't wait to go do it again. I'm excited for you guys to go sometime when you get older. Maybe some of you will help other companies build more spaceships so more people can go. That'd be great.
I have Julian with a question.
Okay, Julian.
did you want to go out of the spaceship?
Did I want to go to a,
Did you want
a
to
different?
go outside of the spaceship?
Oh, did I want to go outside? Not so, but I was happy being inside. It would be cool to go out. That's very complicated. Someday, maybe. Um, but I was pretty happy just having one, just getting to space for that and being able to see through the window. Um, I've thought about a lot about that. There's a lot of complication that goes on to putting on a spacesuit, which is really like wearing a spaceship yourself, like a little cocoon, and then going out as is even more dangerous than what we did. So yeah, maybe next time.
We have time for a couple more questions, you think?
Great. Yeah, I'm good till 12:15 or till quarter after. Yeah.
All right.
Or yeah.
All right, I have Allie with another question for you.
Do you think space has a bottom?
Do I think space has a bottom? I don't really think of it in terms of a top and bottom. It's just kind of an infinity. It just keeps going in every direction. And that's why it's hard to conceive of what's really happening. Wherever you look in space, if you have a telescope and you're looking this way or that way or down or out or behind you, it's just more stars inside of the way and more galaxies everywhere. It almost feels like you're the center of the universe. You aren't, because it's kind of everywhere. So I think of it more as like we're being surrounded by this enormous emptiness, and we're like in a really special planet that keeps us alive.
Thanks, Allie. I have Brantley with a question.
Yeah.
Do you know what the moon's made out of?
Say it again.
Do you know what the moon's made out of?
Do I know what the moon's made out of? Yes, mostly rock. There's like lava flows from volcanoes that were on the moon. There's lava tubes. The astronauts, the 6 times they landed on the moon, they brought back a lot of different rocks, hundreds of pounds of rocks. They've been looked at all over the world. So yeah, there's no liquid. Actually, there might be the components of liquid water, like hydrogen and oxygen in around the South Pole, and that's where the next missions are going to go. They're going to look to see if there's parts like enough oxygen and hydrogen where they could actually make water. So that'd be a good thing for you guys to do if you're curious about the moon. Is like help them do that when you get old. Help them make water on the moon.
All right, do you want to take one more? One last final question?
Yep, I have one more. Here's Wade with one question.
Great.
Is there such thing as a white hole?
Is there what such thing as a white?
A white hole.
Like a black hole, is there such thing as a white hole?
Oh, such thing as a white hole? No. There's kinds of stars called white dwarfs and red dwarfs, but there's not a white hole. That's a black hole. Yeah. There's no blue holes, no purple, yellow, only black. So
Thanks, Wade.
Cool. Yeah, and then just to kind of start getting us wrapped up as we start closing, I'll welcome Wayne and Jill back if they'd like to turn their cameras back on and say some. But before welcome back to
yeah, Wayne, I saw you had a question in the chat.
yeah, he asked about the training, but I think we got some of the students picked up on that question as well, so that was good. But I'll let Wayne say the closing remarks, but before we pass it over to Wayne to close us out, Ron, would you like to say any like final words, advice to students, or just kind of closing things, last message to them?
Yeah, I'll encourage all of you to think about us as all humans on the spaceship Earth, and that we all need to realize that it's a unique and can be really fragile place, and to work together to try and make things better for all of the Earth. So thanks for having me. It's been great talking to you, and I love your questions. Keep asking questions. Hopefully, and love to see you back sometime in the future too.
Yeah, and one of the really cool things is so Jill and I work here at UTSA. We work in the engineering department, and so we get to work so closely. We've had NASA here on campus. One of the students that worked in our office recently, she got a job at NASA, and now
Great.
she's gonna be working with the next Artemis mission as a flight controller and helping send people
Awesome.
over. Yeah, so like all of this stuff that Ron's talking about, going to space and getting to all these things, these are things that you could be doing in the future. You could go to space yourself. You could help fly rocket. Somebody else in our office, just their fiance and one of our students just helped launch a rocket to Jupiter's moon. And so all of the things that we're talking about, and if space interests you, there's a future there for you as well. And so there's a lot of really cool things that you get to learn in school in terms of like how you can do all these questions that you're asking, solving problems of the future. And so encourage you to keep asking these kind of questions, keep learning more about space and math and science and all these things. And there's a lot of really cool things for the future that we can do. But yeah, Wayne, anything last, or even Jill?
Yeah, two quick comments, thoughts that were going through my mind, and then I'll say my thank yous. One is I had the great pleasure and honor of spending an evening having drinks with Neil Armstrong.
Oh
Oh,
my
wow.
God.
And that was a surreal experience, just to sit and chat and talk and amazing, amazing. He sat on the board of directors of a company called Learjet, and D. Howard built the mock-up of the Learjet for Bill Lear, and always had a close association with Learjet, and so I was with Dee, and so Neil came over and we chatted for a while. That was great. The other
Wow.
thing is the first satellite that was put in space was by the Russians. I think it
Mhm.
was 1957, maybe,
Right around
and
there.
it was called Sputnik.
Yep.
And that scared a lot of people that the Russians had a satellite going over going around the world, and what were they going to do with it? But on one of its orbits, it flew over San Antonio. And
Oh,
so I'll never forget going outside. It was at night, and seeing Sputnik up there
oh,
flying over San
yeah, yeah,
Antonio.
yeah. Yeah.
So with those little war stories, let me just end by saying that thank you to Ron, and thank you to Carlos and Jill for all of your great support for making this happen. And a most special thank you to Principal Byrd, and to Frankfurt Elementary, and to the students at Frankfurt Elementary. I'm just so excited that y'all got to talk with Mr. Rosano, and all of your great questions. And so we've recorded this, and then the video of it, and I'll tell Principal Byrd when it's been posted, about a week or 10 days, on the public side of our website, and everyone will be able to see it again if you want to. So with that, thank you. And
Thank you, Ray.
anytime you want to have another one of these presentations, we're ready. We're ready.
Great.
Hint,
I'm
hint,
around.
hint.
Yeah, I'll be. Yeah, please be in touch. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Jill. Thanks, Carlos, and thanks all you students, especially. Keep thinking about space, and we'll see you up there. I hope.
See
See you
ya.
in space,
Okay.
y'all.
Everybody wave.
Bye.
Bye.